Shall we? Shall we get going on 49ers Intel on this Tuesday off? I'm recuperated from all this travel, back from Pittsburgh, ready for week 2, 49ers against the Rams, and I have a whole lot to talk about. I promised you the full Nick Bosa contract breakdown and explanation in a way that you haven't heard or seen anywhere else, and I will deliver that tonight. But there's a bridge to cross tonight, and that bridge is the offseason bridge to the regular season bridge. And hey, the 49ers crossed that one very deftly. Made me really busy this past weekend in Pittsburgh. I'm on the flight from San Francisco to Pittsburgh. A couple hours in, the Nick Bosa contract details finally drop. This flight was happening on Saturday afternoon. The game was on Sunday afternoon. Normally, my Saturdays are quite chill before the game. I do my travel if it's a road game, go out and eat, check out the city, maybe a drink or two, maybe do the preview video, the prediction video. I do a ton of preview stuff, but the prediction video, I did all that. I managed to squeeze it all in Pittsburgh, but I also had to write a Nick Bosa contract analysis, and we learned so much through the Nick Bosa contract numbers about how the 49ers will be operating, not just now, but into the future, how they're building this roster. These details today matter. And the cool thing is that all of this came out the night before the start of the regular season. So it gave us this perfect segue from the very busy offseason where we were all just waiting for Nick Bosa to sign. I mean, that was the thing, right? Everybody kept on asking, when's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? Nobody knew much because the two sides were keeping it hush-hush. But that was the pillar that would mark a successful offseason. And that pillar came at the very end of the offseason. And then we got the final numbers on the eve of the 49ers' first game. And in general, those final numbers indicated that the 49ers have made a massive bet, not only on Bosa, but also on some of their core veterans, George Kittle, Trent Williams, and Eric Armstead. So what better way to set the table for week 1 than by making a huge bet, doubling down on some of your best players? And then what better way to start the season after making that bet than going out and kicking Pittsburgh's ass on the strength of those star players? That was really cool from the 49ers perspective. That's what I talk about, the transition being, and now I'm going to explain what exactly that transition was. So everybody, without further ado, here is the Nick Bosa contract analysis. It is up on the page. The link to this is in the description. You can go ahead and check it out. The first thing that I have to tell you, and I'm going to explain everything that I just said, the mechanics behind what I mean. What does it mean to double down on George Kittle? What are the possible drawbacks? What are the benefits? What kind of gamble are the 49ers taking here? All of that will be explained, but I'll tell you what, it's all explained in writing, probably better than I could speak it in this piece, which is up on the screen. How the 49ers paid Nick Bosa huge money, all while surging to number 1 in cap space. I mean, that was the backdrop to everything, right? The 49ers give Bosa a 5-year, $170 million extension, which is a record for non-quarterbacks, a record for edge rushers, a record for all defensive linemen, a record for, if you include all receivers, everybody outside the quarterback position. This is the best contract that there's ever been. This is also a 49ers record. It surpassed Jimmy Garoppolo's deal signed in 2018. So the 49ers do this. They give Nick Bosa record money, but at the same time, over the course of the same week, they open up $42 million in salary cap space. The 49ers now have more salary cap space than every other team in the NFL. Take that into consideration alongside the context of the 49ers kicking Pittsburgh's ass and putting the NFL on notice. So the 49ers are 1-0. They look really damn good while they do it. Most of the power rankings have them at either 1 or 2, alongside the Dallas Cowboys, who obviously just beat the brakes off of the New York Giants. You have this dominance from the 49ers on the field, and then they're sitting there armed with $42 million in salary cap space. I don't know if there's been a better transition from offseason to season than what the 49ers were able to pull off. I don't think they wanted to wait this long with the Bosa deal, but it ended up having to last until the deadline. Remember, during the negotiations, I said this is like a game of chicken, right? This is two cars careening toward each other, and we're going to see who swerves first, who blinks, who swerves first, same thing. There's no reason to swerve in a game of chicken when you're still a mile away from a collision. The time to swerve is when you're about to collide. And the 49ers and Bosa's side, I think, expected this to last until collision time because both sides were trying to milk the best possible deal from the other side. The 49ers were trying to milk the best possible deal because they wanted to make sure that Bosa's deal combined with all their cap restructures for Armstead, Kittle, and Williams would free up over $40 million. That number is important to them, and I'll explain why in a little bit. So the 49ers obviously wanted to be as salary cap sustainable as possible. They also wanted to make sure that they're not using too many of Jed York's millions on Nick Bosa guaranteed money. You've got to negotiate. You can't just give somebody exactly what they want 2 months before the deadline. Bosa, on the other hand, he had some leverage over the 49ers because they needed him on the field in week one. They need him on the field every week. So, he made them sweat. He probably made them up their offer a little bit there toward the end. But ultimately, and this is from some intelligence from Adam Schefter, Nick Bosa didn't kick the door down like TJ Watt did in 2021 in Pittsburgh. TJ Watt literally goes up to the owner's office. I don't know if he literally kicked the door down, but he does go up to the owner's office. We'll say that he kicked the door down because that's a funnier sight in my head. So kicks the door down, walks in and says, give me this damn contract. I want to sign it. I want to play. And then he says, sorry, I have to go work out. Thanks for the contract. Supposedly, TJ Watt ended those negotiations in 2021. Adam Schefter hinted that Bosa also sped up the end of these negotiations in 2023. And, really the deadline pressure was exerted on both sides. The 49ers obviously needed Bosa on the field, but let's not forget how much Bosa loves to play football. Bosa wants to win multiple Defensive Player of the Years. Bosa wants to be a Hall of Famer. The quickest way to not win a Defensive Player of the Year award and hurt your Hall of Fame chances down the road is to not play, right? So if Bosa started missing time, it would have hurt him as well. The 49ers undoubtedly are worse without Bosa, but Bosa's situation, his goals are also compromised by being without the 49ers, not playing for the team. So the game of chicken was happening. The two cars were near collision, and they both swerved. And how do we know that they both swerved, not just one side? Because of the deal. The deal was fair to both sides, with the 49ers having to pay up, but the 49ers also maintaining cap sustainability. That's why they have $42 million freed up in cap space right now. The main thing that you need to know is Nick Bosa's signing bonus. This tells us so much about this contract and what went into it. Nick Bosa's signing bonus is $50 million. So as soon as he signed this deal, that money started heading toward his bank account. $50 million. Consider that TJ Watt had the previous high in signing bonus for edge rushers. In 2021, the contract that he kicked the door down for, $35.6 million. So that went from $35.6 million high water mark to $50 million high water mark. That is a 40% increase, which is unheard of in terms of growth of signing bonus. So why did the 49ers do this? They obviously might have caved to Nick Bosa on this front. Well, why don't we sit here and explain? Here is the Nick Bosa contract, and I'll explain to you how guaranteed money in the form of signing and option bonuses is so damn important if a team wants to make a contract that's sustainable and keeps it out of salary cap hell. This is Nick Bosa's contract. And by the way, you can open this on your own, on your end, if you go to the description and check out the link. It's $1 a month right now to my Nick Bosa contract breakdown. Bosa's got base salaries in this one column that I'm running the cursor up and down right now. And then he's got his signing and option bonuses. And what the 49ers used here is called a triple bonus structure. This is the first time in NFL history that a triple bonus structure has been used for a non-quarterback. It's only been used 3 times total. Once for Jalen Hurts, once for Justin Herbert, and now for Nick Bosa. And the one rule to keep in mind is that any money awarded as a guaranteed option bonus or as a signing bonus against the salary cap, even though you have to pay the signing bonus right now, the entirety of the $50 million, against the salary cap, it can spread out for up to 5 years. Up to 5 years. So say that the 49ers paid Nick Bosa a $50 million signing bonus, which they did. That spreads out to 50 divided by 10, or 50 divided by 5 equals $10 million per year. So only $10 million of the $50 million signing bonus hits the cap in 2023. Only $10 million hits it in 2024, 2025, 2026, and 2027. If you gave Bosa the $50 million as base salary, well, then it would all hit the cap in 2023, and his cap hit would be astronomical. But you can spread it out into future years if you're willing to give it to him as a signing bonus. So cash is king in the NFL. So the next title says, but we're going to go back up to this one because the signing bonus was massive. This was the first step towards spreading Bosa's cap hit out. They gave him the league minimum base salary, $1.01 million. As you can see there, that's the league minimum. He's set to be at the league minimum in 2024 and 2025. Again, all part of the mechanism to keep the cap hit low. So signing bonus plus base salary. This year, the cap hit is only $11 million. The 49ers saved about, $7.9 million? It had been, or 6.9. My math is a little rough. It was 17.9 million. So 6.9 million they saved this season. 7 million opened up in all essence from Nick Bosa's contract. Still, the $50 million signing bonus was not enough. So they gave him another bonus. This is a guaranteed option bonus. It's this column right here that kicks in 2024. This is like an accordion way because you can only spread these out over 5 years. So if you can only spread these out over 5 years, then you want another one to kick in 2024 that lasts through the final year of Nick Bosa's contract, right? So there you go. This one kicks in 2024. It prorates. So 15.2 divided by 5 is 3.1, 3.1, 3.1, 3.1, 3.1, 3.1. I know that it's not exact to the decimals, but you get the idea. It's about 3.1 million if you added the rest of the decimals to 15.2 million. So Nick Bosa's cap hit grows to 14.7 million, but it's still relatively low next year. And then they gave him what is unprecedented for non-quarterbacks, a second option bonus. Now, this one's not fully guaranteed until April 1st of next year, but for all intents and purposes, we can expect Bosa to be on the contract April 1st of next year. This one is $29 million. This one kicks in 2025. It's in teal. And 29 divided by 5 is 5.8 per 5 years. They added a void year, which is not an actual contractual year, but it's a year that the team can use to spread out the cap hit of this guaranteed money. So as you can see, Bosa's cap hits go 11, 14.7, 20.5 million over the first 3, and then they get really high. 42 million, 52 million, 42.9 million, and then the void year, which will accelerate. So the last year here is really probably close to 48 or 49 million. The 49ers have a crowded cap situation right now, right? They had almost no money in 2023, and they're way over the projected cap in 2024. So what they had to do is find a way to push a lot of this money into 2024 and beyond, especially the beyond part is important, to free up money now so they could keep the team together. To do that, they had to pay Nick Bosa a massive signing bonus and these guaranteed option bonuses. One of them is fully guaranteed. The other one will be by April 1st, 2024. So cash is king, and the 49ers, who are in win now mode, are willing to spend it. They did this a very similar mechanism with the existing contracts of Eric Armstead, with George Kittle and Trent Williams. They took all of their base salaries. So here, I'm just going to open up Nick Bosa's graphic right here. They took this column, which was really big for Armstead, Kittle, and for Trent Williams, and they converted it to signing bonus. So they took the orange, converted it to blue, spread it out over multiple years. Now, you might ask me, what's the downside of this? You're opening up cap space now. What's the downside? Well, you don't want to end up like the Rams. You don't want to end up having to release players who say that you released Bosa, before like 2025. All of this shaded money is guaranteed. All of it, it's hitting the cap over several years. But if you released him or if you traded him, it would accelerate and hit the salary cap now. And you don't have room for that. That would make you cut players just to fit under the salary cap because you have to be under it. So you essentially, what's happening with these restructures and with the Bosa contract, you are doubling down your bet on these star players, these guys who have been very financially efficient for you. You're doubling down on your bet, saying, I think they're going to continue to be efficient for several more seasons so that their financial structure looks like this, so that the shaded portions, which are guaranteed money that's hitting the salary cap later, stays later. The salary cap rises in later years. You want that to stay later. You're betting that they're not going to tank on you, retire on you in the case of Trent Williams, get hurt, so you have to release them. You're banking that's not going to happen, because if you did have to cut ties with these players, if they do become financially efficient, that money would hit the salary cap now, and you would be screwed. We saw that happen with the Rams when they traded away, and they had to trade away Brandon Cooks. They decided to trade away Jared Goff. They went all in, right? They wanted to win the Super Bowl in 2021. But they paid the price in 2022, and I think they're still paying the price now, and the 49ers are playing them this weekend. I mean, if we want to talk about 49ers-Rams a little bit, we can. I think that the 49ers have a distinct advantage, though, the line of scrimmage against the Rams. D-line against the Rams O-line. It's probably going to look a lot like most 49ers-Rams matchups have over the past few years. The Rams definitely are going to be sad they're not playing the Seahawks anymore, who aren't able to field a competent pass rush. The 49ers are, therefore, they have the edge. And anyway, that's a whole topic about football X's and O's, which we can get to a little bit later. But we want to talk about the Bosa contract and how they'd set the 49ers up. Well, they have risked something. They've risked something in that they've wagered a ton on not just Bosa, but on Armstead, on Kittle, and on Trent Williams. And the first return on that wager was very good against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that takes me to the transition from offseason contract breakdown to the Pittsburgh Steelers week 1, and now on to the Rams in week 2. The epic Nick Bosa to Brock Purdy transition. Because Bosa, I mean, he was great. He was great on Sunday. He was the 49ers' top-graded defensive player, who's taken on a lot of chips, a lot of double teams. It really was a tour de force from the 49ers defense. But it was Brock Purdy who was truly sensational on the other side of the ball. Yes, he wasn't just good. He was great. And I have some visual evidence for you. This is a great new analytics website, by the way. It's called Summer Sports. Tej Seth, who I believe is an MIT student, really smart guy. He put this, I think he's one of the guys that put this together, because I got the link from his Twitter. But they're able to put the expected points added per play, the efficiency. You know, we don't care about yards per game. We don't care about stats that aren't necessarily correlated with winning. Efficiency per snap is correlated with winning. Raw totals, raw yards per game is not correlated with winning. And expected points per play is going to look at down and distance. It's going to measure quarterback's performance, against with the variables of down and distance in mind. And with this website, Summer Sports, we can also filter out garbage time. So the 49ers blew out the Steelers. So I want just non-garbage time stats. So I applied the filter. Look at this. You could zoom in if you need to. Look at this is quarterback EPA per play from week 1. Look at where Brock Purdy is. He was adding an expected point with every single drop back. The next best outside of garbage time was Matthew Stafford, who the 49ers are playing this week. And he wasn't really facing a pass rush because the Seahawks couldn't get to him. Matthew Stafford, 0.55. That's nearly half of Brock Purdy's efficiency. The gap between 1 and 2 this first week was insane. You look at the rest of the top 5, the gap between 5 and 6 was really big too. So the top 5 were all really, really good. Purdy, absolutely otherworldly, elite efficiency. Then Stafford, really damn good. Jordan Love, really damn good. Tagovailoa, really good. Jimmy Garoppolo, really good. Jimmy Garoppolo gets to play Josh Allen and the Bills on Sunday. That's going to be really interesting. But, I mean, again, you look how just this is insane from Brock Purdy. Outside of garbage time, he was so efficient for the 49ers and just really dispelled a lot of very poor narratives. For example, there's a narrative that he's somehow not driving the ball downfield, that he's physically incapable of doing it. It is completely untrue, and we can look at some tape to disprove that. All we need is one clip. Oh, yeah, he can't drive the ball downfield. Fits it into a tight window, first down. I mean, we could play this. People should watch this over and over and again if they don't think that Brock Purdy has an arm. This is the type of throw that Brock Purdy is absolutely elite with. Brock Purdy has the highest completion percentage on throws that travel between 10 and 20 air yards downfield of any NFL quarterback on record. 80.5% last year, according to PFF. Well, he was 9 of 10 on these throws against the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you can make this throw You can make anything that Kyle Shanahan needs you to make. I'm not afraid to tell you I don't think that Brock Purdy is the best deep passer in football, but he doesn't need to be the best deep passer in football. He needs to manage an offense efficiently. And managing an offense efficiently looks like this. It works in conjunction with what Kyle Shanahan is calling. Brock Purdy did that this week, and it was really, really impressive. We can talk more about Purdy in a little bit when I open this up to the Q&A, but I want to get through some more talking points. We're at the 20-minute water break. You know, 500 of you in here. I know it's Tuesday. People take it a little bit easier on Tuesday. I haven't been taking it easier. I was a guest on a couple shows today, and we did a podcast. Matt Barrows and I did, so that will be up. Here's the catch. You got to make sure you check that out. I started writing my article for this week, or I'm going to write a couple of them, but can't really write that in earnest until tomorrow, because tomorrow is when I head back to the 49ers facility, get into the locker room. And now I'm here talking to you at what? A little bit earlier than normal. I think a lot of people expect me to come on at 8, but I'm still a little bit, on East Coast time. I've been on the East Coast twice in 1 week. I came back to cover 3 practices last week, and I just decided to stay on East Coast time. And it's going to take me a couple days to transition out of East Coast time now. So I figured we'd talk a little bit earlier on this beautiful Tuesday in San Francisco. Okay, so we're moving on. Here's my next thing. Don't undersell the 49ers camaraderie aspect. And I wrote about this because I broke down the 49ers' big touchdown run that I thought sealed the football game. This was Christian McCaffrey's 65-yarder at the start of the second half. There you go. There's Christian. Now the 49ers' perfect execution sprung Christian McCaffrey's touchdown run in Pittsburgh. So one article written, an entire one, on one touchdown run. There was so much to learn from this touchdown run about the 49ers. This is another one that's in the description. You can go ahead and check it out. But one thing that really stood out to me was this. This is what Ray McLeod said to me after the game, because McLeod came from the opposite side of the formation. So we're talking, he had to run a good 70 to 75 yards to lay that final block, which was like a 17-yard block where he was driving Patrick Peterson from the 20 to about the 3-yard line, and it sprung Christian McCaffrey the rest of the way into the end zone. So I asked McLeod, it took a lot of hustle. You weren't sure that play was even going to be alive, but you're sprinting over toward it. What fueled you on that play? And Ray told me, sometimes that backside block means a lot. Once I heard the crowd going, I took off. It means more when you like your teammate, and I love my dog McCaffrey. It's a family, man. We go so hard for each other. It shows on the field. There you have it. Ray McLeod. Do not undersell what Ray Mcleod is saying. I said this a couple times. I was a guest on a couple shows today. I said, a lot of people look at the whole camaraderie thing and be like, oh, that's Disney movie stuff. Like, this doesn't actually happen in the NFL. Don't undersell it. Ever since I started covering the 49ers, and this is 7 years ago now, this is my 7th season. One of the big emphasis pieces from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch was to build a locker room that liked each other, like a college-like locker room. They wanted, because they felt that after they got good, and it took a couple years, but after they got good, it'd be a lot easier to maintain buy-in, keep the team together, and get an edge over opponents if guys genuinely like being there and playing the game. And a lot of people were always skeptical of, okay, what's the actual on-field benefit of this emphasis going to be? Ray McLeod literally just told us. Ray McLeod, he's not talking out of his ass. It means more when you like your teammate. And I love my dog McCaffrey. It's a family, man. So, this would just be lip service if the 49ers weren't literally the only team that blocks this hard with its wide receivers, and that's indisputable. That's in the tape. They're the only team that asks its receivers to block at this level. It's a prerequisite to play, right? So most teams aren't none of the other teams are asking for what the 49ers are asking. out of their wide receivers. But on top of the ask from Kyle Shanahan to get these receivers onto the field, and we talk about the doghouse and everything with the receivers, but on top of that ask, there seems to be a genuine love of actually executing those blocks. And I think that this quote from Ray McLeod is such a tremendous insight into what makes the 49ers tick, what makes that locker room work. The 49ers are trying to zag while the rest of the league zigs. And that takes me to the next quote. And this is Brandon Ayuk's answer to me after the game in the locker room. Because one thing, the big run where McLeod had the block at the end, Brandon Ayuk obviously took out Demonte Casey, with just a pancake flattening block. It was a steamroller about 15 yards past the line of scrimmage. That is the block that everybody sees, but there was way more to that play. Way more to that play. This wasn't just Brandon Ayuk running out in the open. This was Brandon Ayuk asked to down block a defensive end before laying his pancake on the safety, Casey. Okay, he had 2 assignments on that play. People don't realize he had 2 assignments. The play for the 49ers, it's an inside zone play called 19 structure fool. Fool means that Brandon Ayuk is doing something deceptive. What he did deceptively was at the line of scrimmage, he lined up, bunched in close, and he actually started blocking Alex Highsmith, who's an edge rusher for the Steelers. A wide receiver blocking an edge rusher is not an assignment that any other team is going to ask. In fact, when I asked Brandon Ayuk about it after the game, he said it was a crazy game plan in the run game. Just in terms of our assignments on the outside, having to go in tight, blocking those guys on the inside, linebackers. He's talking about outside linebackers. He's talking about Alex Highsmith. So what Kyle Shanahan was asking Brandon Ayuk to do something crazy on that play. And Ayuk said it was messy, that play, but he did it. He helped block Alex Highsmith, and that helped out Trent Williams and George Kittle, who were combo blocking on that side, to fully take out Highsmith and fully take out Minkah Fitzpatrick, who we know can be a missile who was run blitzing on the play. So you eliminate Highsmith and Fitzpatrick with 3 players, with Ayuk, with Williams, and Kittle. Williams and Kittle, they're essentially done for the play. Their assignment's done. But Ayuk, not only with the fool part of 19 structure fool, Ayuk not only eliminated or helped eliminate Highsmith for a second or two, he then bolted down the field and just bulldozed Demonte Casey. So there was a 15-yard gap that Brandon Ayuk crossed in 4 seconds and executed 2 blocks within that 15-yard gap. This is not normal. Most teams, any other team not named the 49ers, is not asking its receivers to do this. And the way that Ayuk puts it, he says, I didn't even know what to do. I just saw Christian breaking free and I went to chase somebody. Well, he caught somebody. He flattened Casey. Casey is whom Ayuk caught and flattened. You also saw Ray McLeod working on Patrick Peterson. So I put the 49ers are zagging while the rest of the league is zigging because in general, the rest of the league is downsized. Defenders are getting smaller, more pass-oriented, right? They're trying to be able to use quickness to combat opposing passing games. Well, meanwhile, the 49ers are getting a little bit bigger. And even if they're not getting bigger in actual stature, which I think they have gotten a little bit bigger, but even if it's not in actual stature, the 49ers are playing bigger. They're telling their receivers to man up the block. Juwan Jennings drew another personal foul flag. How? Because he pissed off the opposing defensive back. He was blocking him too hard. So he took a hand up in the face mask. We've seen that multiple times from Jennings. I remember it against Jacksonville in 2021. I saw it again in this game. It is a different style of football. And this should tremendously excite 49ers fans because this different style of football gives them a true ceiling. People were talking about ceiling all offseason with Trey Lance. It's like, what does that even mean? Well, I'll tell you what ceiling actually means. Ceiling is where a team can go because its strengths relative to what the rest of the NFL is doing are so pronounced. And I mean, we've seen the 49ers absolutely dominate in the run game in a way that other teams don't dominate in this day and age. Look back at the 2019 season's NFC Championship game against the Packers. Look at the stretch run with Christian McCaffrey last season. It was dominant. But again, those are late season examples. We've typically talked about the 49ers struggling, sputtering a bit out of the gate. I would say that they looked like they were in midseason form against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe not postseason form, but midseason form. And this run, that's why this run was such a big deal. So why don't you go ahead, check this one out. It is in the description. You can go ahead and copy and paste the link, put it in the description, and read about that. You're going to get a lot more, I think, depth into my analysis if you read it. I could sit here and talk about it all day. I do this for free for you guys, but go and check out The Athletic. That's what you have to pay $1 a month for, but I think it's going to be well worth it because you're going to get insight from the 49ers locker room that you see everywhere else. I think that everything right now, and I alluded to this a little bit, everything should be framed in terms of the pursuit of the 1 seed for the 49ers. Zoom out. They just played Pittsburgh. They got 16 regular season games to go. They got the Rams on Sunday at SoFi. It's going to be a home game by the crowd. I mean, I think you're probably going to see 80% 49ers fans. You saw a lot in Pittsburgh too. Then they have a short week and they played the New York Giants at home, who looked terrible against the Cowboys. Then you play Arizona at home. And then you head to Cleveland. So that's the game 5, Cleveland. The first 4 look really winnable. The 49ers are 8.5-point favorites for this game against the Rams. Seems about right to me because the Rams, and I'll talk about this in a bit, the Rams have not been able to handle the 49ers pass rush at all in most of the matchups between these two teams since 2019. So, when you look at that, you say, okay, I get why the 49ers are favored. Move to the Giants. They just lost 40-0 to the Cowboys. I know they're not going to look that bad every single week, but on a short week, traveling cross country, night game, that's an advantage for the West Coast team. Schedule really works in the 49ers' favor there for week 3. So they're going to be favored against the Giants. And then you've got week 4. Week 4 is the Arizona Cardinals. Nothing else needs to be said. The 49ers are going to be favored there. They should be starting this season 4-0. They should be. If they lose one of these games, I think it would be very disappointing. And it's important to emphasize how important a 4-0 start would be because everything should be framed right now in the 49ers' pursuit of the 1 seed. We talk about this. Cash is king, and the 49ers are willing to spend in win now mode. They're going out there giving out big signing bonuses, restructuring contracts, locking and loading for a big season, and then looking like they're in postseason form in week 1, at least with some of these running plays. They're doing all this stuff. They're doing all that because they want to win a Super Bowl this year. And the clearest path to the Super Bowl by a wide margin is to earn the number 1 seed. All about that 1 seed. Well, number 1 seeds over the last 20 years have made the Super Bowl over 70% of the time. Wild card teams have made the Super Bowl like 10 to 15% of the time. The gap is mind-numbingly big in terms of probability. Now that the season's an extra game long, you're going to be so tired by the end of the year. The 2021 49ers learned the hard way. They squeak into the playoffs and they have to go on the road. They don't get a bye. They're good enough to beat the Cowboys on the road. They're good enough to beat the Packers on the road. And hell, they showed that they were good enough to beat the Rams on the road in week 18, must-win game. But they ran out of gas in the NFC Championship. They're up by 10 in the fourth quarter. Physically, they just ran out of gas. The toll of the mileage and just the strain without a bye week caught up to them. So I would almost argue that the 49ers in 2021 were derailed not by the Rams, but they were derailed by the fact that they were just exhausted by the end of it. Completely exhausted. So you avoid that by getting the job done in the regular season. And that's why I'm talking about 4-0, because it's important. It's important to consider this big picture. 49ers have gotten off the slow starts. The reason that they had to take the hard path in 2021 is because they started that season 2-4. Hard path in 2022 because they started that season 3-4. So they started 1-0 here, but that doesn't mean anything yet. They got to go 2-0. They got to go 3-0. They got to go 4-0 if they want to be on the inside track for that 1 seed. So these next 3 weeks, you got to take it a week at a time if you're the 49ers. But if you're an analyst, if you're participating in this analysis with me, we have to look at this big picture. And that 1 seed is really important for the 49ers. Everything should be framed in terms of the pursuit of that 1 seed. Why don't everybody take a little breather right now? I'm not going to leave, but hit the subscribe button. Show some love. Check out the articles that are in the description. Hit the alarm bell. Strap up, get ready for a big week. It's 49ers Rams week. And the Rams are coming off a really impressive performance. The Rams gave up 12 yards of offense to the Seahawks after halftime. That stat right there coming out of Seattle should make you drop all offseason narratives about the Rams. Oh, this was going to be the worst team in the NFC West. No, not really. Cardinals, I get it. But not even I laugh when I say that. Anything that you thought about the Rams being some kind of pushover, you have to throw out the window when you hear that they gave up 12 yards of total offense in the second half. That you just have to. Now, do I think the 49ers will control this game against LA? Yes. I think they're a lot better. I think that part of our prognosis still stands. It's correct. I think that Matthew Stafford, who threw for 330 plus against the Seahawks, think he's going to look a whole lot worse against a defense that can actually pressure him. Matthew Stafford is a very different quarterback when he's pressured versus when he's not. And that's nothing about Matthew Stafford, really. It's any quarterback. But the 49ers-Rams series has been defined by QB pressure on the 49ers side. I think they've won 8 of the last 9 games, right? The exception was the NFC title. That's the game they ran out of gas. They still got to Stafford for most of that game up until the fourth quarter. So you have to get to Stafford. I get it. He's probably going to go quick pass. Well, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, it's your time to eat. You got to make sure those short passes don't work. Secondary. You have to make Stafford hitch. Double hitch. Double hitch means pass rush hits. Simple as that. If Stafford is first read, boom, snap, release, deliver, you're in trouble. The Seahawks were in trouble last week. They weren't able to make Stanford hitch. It's the second time today. It was on a different show somewhere else. I called Stanford. Stanford is not very good this year, sadly. But I digress. Back to Stafford. You got to make him hold on to the football just for a split second longer. That could be all the difference in the world. And the 49ers have Javon Hargrave this time. They didn't have him last time. The Rams put together one of the worst offensive line performances that I've ever seen at this level against the 49ers last year in week 4. It was brutal. It was really, really bad. But they had a center I hadn't heard of before. They were playing guys out of position. When the 49ers saw them again in week 8, the center had been replaced. I think Brian Allen was the center by week 8. So it wasn't Jeremiah Colon anymore. It's practice squad guy they called up. So Brian Allen was back. I think he got hurt early in week 4. By week 8, the Rams were in much better position. They were ready to do a little something to the 49ers in week 8. So it was important for Christian McCaffrey to deliver the way that he did because the Rams offense actually had a little bit of a pulse. And then the 49ers won that game going away. The moral of the story is if you can win the battle up front, which sometimes starts with the coverage fueling the rush for the 49ers, and I think it always is going to be the case, then you're going to make the Rams look a whole lot different than they did last week. The other side of the ball, though, is a big test for Brock Purdy, who, again, we'll play this again for people who don't think that he's got arm strength. Brock Purdy was great. Now he's got to face Aaron Donald in a new-look Rams defense that didn't give up hardly anything to Geno Smith in the second half last week. And Aaron Donald is a game wrecker because of his ability to win on the inside. You can win on the inside, you could be in the quarterback's lap within a second. So the 49ers are going to have to make sure that Aaron Donald stays at bay. And you know what? I think back to 2019, and the 49ers ran 2 backup tackles in that game. It was week 6 at the Coliseum. Joe Staley was hurt. Mike McGlinchey was hurt. The 49ers start Daniel Brunskill and Justin School at tackle. Very first possession, Aaron Donald, big number 99, says, it's interesting. 2 backup tackles, huh? Well, I know I'm technically a defensive tackle. I technically line up against guards in the center. But I'm going to line up against this guy's School. First drive. And Aaron Donald blew by Justin School, sack of Jimmy Garoppolo. 49ers won that game. They ended up giving a lot of help on the edges and wherever they needed to against Aaron Donald. Garoppolo was good. I mean, it was all fun for the 49ers from that point on. But that first drive, when I saw Aaron Donald line up against Justin School at defensive end instead of defensive tackle, it told me something. Told me he's going to find the weak link and he's going to line up over the weak link. And we saw the weak link for the 49ers this past week. We saw McKivitz struggle against TJ Watt, gave up 5 pressures and 3 sacks. We saw Spencer Burford right next to him at right guard really struggle, gave up 5 pressures. Larry Ogunjobi ate his lunch at least twice, maybe more. Watched that game a couple times, and there's a lot of pressure that the right side of the line is generating against the 49ers. So you can bet that Aaron Donald is going to line up against both of those guys. He's going to test Colton McKivitz. He's going to test Spencer Burford. He's going to push that side of the pocket, and the 49ers are going to have to step up to that challenge. Now, the best Rams corner following the trade of Jalen Ramsey, which racked up some more dead money for the Rams, is a guy named Akello Witherspoon. So the 49ers, I think, might have something cooking for them on the back end. Now, Akello, talented player. He's older now, though. Not the youngest corner anymore in the game. And not old, but he's got to be in his upper 20s, by now. They drafted him in 2017. So, yeah, he's nearing 30 years old. Anyway, his issue was that he was always a little too soft for what the 49ers wanted to do. I don't think that a Deebo Samuel, Akello Witherspoon collision is likely to go in Akello Witherspoon's favor. That's just me guessing. I don't think a collision with Brandon Ayuk is likely to go in Akello Witherspoon's favor. So and we talk about the 49ers zagging while everybody else is zigging. That's what the emphasis on yards after the catch is all about. And we'll see if the Rams are up for making some tackles after the catch. We know in the past they've had a whole heck of a lot of trouble with Deebo Samuel. So, I mean, this matchup, it's 99. If you can neutralize him, there's a lot of unproven talent for the Rams on the back end, that like unproven in the context of facing the 49ers and actually being able to slow down bully ball. They have some familiar faces, but they've lost quite a bit, and they played well against Seattle, so I'm intrigued. 49ers have to take this seriously. I just think that on paper, the 49ers definitely have that advantage. Boy, that was a crazy 42 minutes. We're not done yet, don't worry, but we went from the Nick Bosa contract analysis, which was really fun. Finally got to be able to break that down in very firm fashion. We went from that, talking about the signing bonus, talking about the contract breakdown, which is right here, to talking about Christian McCaffrey and the 65-yard touchdown run. What a wicked spin move, by the way. Vicious is what I wrote in the article. Get away from Levi Wallace. McCaffrey is special. If you want a cool stat, rushing yards over expectation for Christian McCaffrey, 56 rushing yards over expectation. NFL Next Gen Stats led all NFL running backs. That is just uses the GPS data and the speed of the players to calculate how much should he have gained, how much would the average running back gained, and how many more yards than that did Christian McCaffrey gain. And he gained quite a bit more, 56 more on the game over expectation. So McCaffrey worth his weight in gold, wearing that gold helmet right now. Put him back on the screen. Looking good in the 49ers uniform. Oh, and then we talked about the 49ers team camaraderie. That was really cool too. We talked about the blocking and the run game, all those things. It was all good. It's a good time to move to 49ers Q&A. Let's go. All right. First question is here. The 49ers have enough cap space to sign Ayuk and Greenlaw and Tano Hufanga. All right, yeah. I need to get deeper into this, so I will right now. Let's go here. 49ers salary cap. You can also check this out. This is my 49ers salary cap breakdown. So it's about to go up on the screen. This is the wrong here. Hold on. Let me get the right one up for you, because I made improvements to this. It's now just called 49ers Salary Cap Outlook. And you've got the 2023 cap situation where the 49ers now have $42 million in space. And you've got the 2024 situation where you could see up here, they're $40 million over the predicted cap. We don't know what it's going to be, but I project it to be what over the cap says, $256 million. You could hope that the NFL gains more revenue from TV stuff and ticket sales or whatever. I'm not exactly sure what's going to affect it moving up or down at this point, like within the actual term of revenue. I just know that it's tied to league revenue. Anyway, cap space carries over if you don't use it from year to year. So the 49ers have $42 million right now, and they're going to need roughly $40 million to cover in 2024. This is 24. So it will carry over to cover them. And in 24, Brandon Ayuk's cap hit, which is $14.1 million, can be lowered with an extension, which would give them a few more million. So the answer is yes, you definitely have enough space to sign Ayuk. They've backloaded a lot of the restructured contracts. They backloaded Bosa's contract to give them the ability to sign A-listers. And I think that Brandon Ayuk, with his performance in Pittsburgh, has announced himself as a firm A-list candidate for the 49ers this year. So there is money to sign guys. The only way that there wouldn't be money is if Armstead, Bosa, one of these guys, if Armstead, Bosa, Trent Williams, George Kittle, if those guys become inefficient and the 49ers are lugging around a big cost for these guys and not getting anything out of it, they can't even cut them at this point, but they would still be carrying around dead weight. That's when you start to hit an area of, oh boy, we're stuck with these contracts, kind of like the Rams were. And if we trade them away, we're going to rack up dead money. The Rams just got rid of the contract so they wouldn't have to face the dead money later. So they would open up room to rebuild. That's what they're doing right now. Maybe it's a speedy rebuild, but the only way you wouldn't have money is if the bets that you made last week quickly don't pay off. And they're bets that the 49ers made for a reason, because they believe in those players. No, Brock Purdy's on a rookie contract, so he's tremendously inexpensive for the 49ers, about $890,000 this year. In 2024, that escalates to about $1 million for Brock Purdy, cap hit wise. I think the Rams defense was really technically sound, and I think that Geno Smith and that Seahawks offense is a little overvalued. Now, both things have to happen. If you're going to hold somebody to 12 yards and a half, the defense is going to have to be good and the offense is going to have to be bad. You need both, because 12 yards is not a lot of yards. So the 49ers, I mean, when they're looking at the Rams, they have to say, okay, let's give them credit for what they did, and they have to be ready for that. I will say that Seattle slowed down considerably in second halves of games last season down the stretch. The second half in general wasn't nearly as good for Geno Smith and that offense as the first half of the season. So that tells me that the Seahawks are a little bit slow with counter adjustments. And I think that the Rams beat them in a game of chess on Sunday. I think Tutu Atwell's quick. They're all dangerous, but generally the smaller receivers get a little bullied against the 49ers. And nobody's dangerous if that pass rush is hitting quick enough. So it's Atwell, it's Nacua, right? Puka Nacua is the rookie I talked about a little bit earlier today. 10 catches, 112 yards against Seattle. He's kind of playing that Cooper Kupp role where he's lined up on the inside, the slot, and on the outside. 49ers might have to get creative to cover him. But again, pass rush supersedes everything. But you want the coverage to fuel the rush as well to force Stafford to hold on to the ball. I mean, 11 penalties, obviously not good. They still wanted a blowout. And it's week 1, right? I mean, the preseason is treated so, I don't want to say blasé, but teams are just kind of tiptoe around the preseason nowadays. It's hard to develop really firm cohesion. So if you turn up in week 4, week 5, and it's still 11 penalties a game, you can make a story out of it. Week 1, not so sure. I mean, you have to give a team a chance to iron out some of the kinks that'll inevitably be part of the regular season. And I don't speak on behalf of the 49ers. I speak on behalf of myself. It's a good way to get yourself blocked right there. A little passive, underhanded comment. So, yeah, go ahead and try me. Put one or more of those comments up there, and you're not going to be able to comment anymore. Another penalty question. I don't think they have more than average in every year, maybe a little bit more. Again, this was week 1. I'm going to look up the total penalty yards, but week 1 they had 11. That's a lot. The penalties were going off around the league though. So wait to see how this team develops moving over into the regular season. And then you give it a few weeks. Just see if the preseason is just not what it used to be as far as playing all your guys. So I think you're bound to see a few more penalties. All right, more questions. Let's go. I don't know who comes up with the power rankings. Somebody's asking about those. I honestly don't care that much about power rankings. I don't think, they're fun and everything to read, but I mean, speaking of that, let me pull up. Let me pull up the NFL team tiers. Power rankings are subjective. Something like team tiers, that's going to be a lot more data driven, and we're data driven here. So let's drive with the data, shall we? Here we go. All right, here we go. NFL team tiers after week 1. You want to be further to the right and further up on the XY axis. So the 49 and these diagonal lines right here are going to signify the team tiers, as you can tell. So hopefully I've given you the visual here so you could kind of picture where you want to be. It's upper right. 49ers, the first dividing diagonal line is underneath the 49ers dot. So there are 2 tier 1 teams. Maybe the Packers and the Rams cross over into tier 1, but I think it's the Niners and the Cowboys that are firmly tier 1 after week 1. So I don't think it's crazy to put the Cowboys as number 1 in the power rankings. Like, are you seriously going to be upset if the 49ers are 2 versus number 1? I mean, Dallas objectively on this graph is a little bit better than the 49ers. But at the end of the day, like, seriously, this doesn't matter. Not determining the NFC Championship. So, all right. On to the next. Thomas Lake is calling Purdy a top 10 QB right now. I don't feel the need to rank Purdy. I just want to get a sample size. And when that sample size is big enough for me to see that he's durable over a longer stretch, that he can make counter adjustments over a longer stretch, then I'll rank him. It's totally. I think that he's got a ceiling. Everybody spent all offseason talking about Trey Lance's ceiling, and they're not talking about the fact that Brock Purdy's a faster scrambler, that he's a better intermediate thrower. I mean, the cognition test for Brock Purdy was what, 99th percentile, whatever it was that Matt Barrows reported. And he's got a hell of a ceiling, but ceiling and actualization of efficiency over a long period of time are 2 different things. And I can't wait to see if Brock Purdy can actualize the great play over a long period of time. So I take a little bit of exception to this question. He's asked, what's Purdy's points per game average? Purdy's not the only one scoring points. The entire team has to score points. Somebody's got to catch the ball. Somebody's got to block. The defense also has to give you field position. So with Purdy at quarterback, the 49ers have scored over 30 points per game. That is a fact. But you can't only look at that when evaluating the quarterback. That's why I go into the more detailed stats. That's why you go to expected points. That's why you go to DVOA. That's why you go to QBR. Purdy's number 1 in QBR, by the way, right now. Matthew Stafford is number 2. See both of those quarterbacks after week 1, good performances against each other in SoFi. So Purdy's over 30, but you can't only look at that. Jerry Rice said it best. It takes a team to win a Super Bowl. The reason we love this sport is because it's such a collective sport. Everybody has to pull their weight. The Rams struggled to defend Christian McCaffrey last year. I don't see why they wouldn't this year. I mean, everybody struggles to defend him. Even if you defend him well, you're still struggling. It's still an uphill battle because he's so damn talented in every phase of the game. Now, the 49ers, unlike the Panthers, are superstars among the 5 eligibles. So that makes it even harder to cover somebody like Christian McCaffrey. Sean McVay does struggle to beat Shanahan, especially since 19. I'm not sure if sacks are calculated in QBR. I'll check on that for you. That's Mike's question. But I do think that they are. QBR is known. I mean, it's a pretty all-encompassing quarterback metric, factors in scrambling as well, but I'm not sure. Well, Oren Burke started the most recent game at Sam linebacker, but the 49ers were a nickel like 90% of the time. They also blitzed on 4 of the first 7 snaps. That's the first quarter. So like 55, 56%, but didn't blitz all that much the rest of the game. And it might have been because they built up a big lead against the Steelers. You're asking if 2022 is better than 2019. The short answer is yes. The long answer is 2019 at its peak when everybody was healthy was better than 2022. 2019 finished ranked number 2. 2022 finished ranked number 1. But remember the injuries that really took their toll, especially the Dee Ford injury down the stretch. So the best that we've ever seen the 49ers defense, might be right now, but before this year, was the stretch with Dee Ford healthy in 2019, which is why it's such a big deal that Drake Jackson is stepping up with the 3 sacks the other day. Kinlaw was really good the other day. Yeah, he is a nice backup to Hargrave. I was not covering the Niners back in 2013, no. Marvin says that Greenlaw and Warner were all over the place. By the way, I got to say, I'm very happy right now. Very respectful chat. This is how it should be done. That's what this channel is all about. This is respectful football conversation. I know sometimes these things get unhinged, drives Mike crazy, but I'm looking at the chat right now and it looks good. But I mean, it's the regular season. We're here to talk football now. I've been as unbiased as they come. I'm giving you guys facts. I'm taking time out of my day to do these long shows where nobody else is talking right now, just to give you an unfiltered stream of information. So if something disrespectful is coming across on my channel, it's just not going to happen. All right. That's just not how we're operating here. And we're going to create kind of a classy environment to be able to talk about the 49ers. This is a good question from Andrew. Pittsburgh hosts Cleveland next week. Will they lose because they played the 49ers last weekend? So last year, teams that played the 49ers who played the very next week finished 0-14. It was one of the wildest stats you'll ever see. Isaiah Oliver, who's now the 49ers nickelback, played for Atlanta. They beat the 49ers, but Oliver's Falcons team lost the very next week. I think they played the Bills. I think. Don't quote me. Oliver has since said there is something to playing the 49ers and then just being beaten up the very next week. You know, it's one of those things where the the 49ers, I talked about it earlier. It's a zag while everybody else is zigging. If you're playing truly physical football in a way that's kind of throwback to the 80s and 90s with the physicality, the run blocking and all that, a lot of teams aren't used to that. The calluses aren't built for the types of bruises. So again, the proof is in the pudding. Teams that played the 49ers last year were 0-14 in their next game. It's a big sample. It's a really big sample. 0-14. The Chiefs won their next game, but they had a bye week, so they had time to recuperate. So, I mean, we'll see. Pittsburgh hosts Cleveland, and that's a tough matchup. Cleveland's coming off a win over Cincinnati in week 1. Chris summarizes it. Smash Mouth brand of football, the most physical team in the NFL. You want to see a Niners-Philly rematch? So my wife, Margot, a couple months ago, went to Lombard Street and she like photoshopped the eye onto it. I'll find the picture. It was funny. Posted it up on Instagram. Will the Steelers have a longer? Is that not till Monday night? I didn't know. That's awesome. I'm glad that we got to meet at that 49ers Seahawks game, Roberto. I think the Steelers were a real test, and I think the 49ers passed it. You're asking me just because the 49ers blew the Steelers out doesn't mean it wasn't a test. Everybody was talking about the Steelers being talented, really good. They were 6-1 to close last season. Good preseason. That was a test. 49ers just passed it. Just because you beat somebody really bad doesn't mean that they're a bad team. It just means that you might be really good, right? I think the Rams are going to be a test. They always are. 49ers have success against them, but it's still a test. Now, if you're talking about what I think is going to be, this is daunting. I think that Cleveland game, you have to go back east. You have a few games in your belt, probably be some injuries by then, just the way the league works. Myles Garrett on the other side, Deshaun Watson on the other side. It's going to be a tough one for the 49ers. But every single week is a test in the NFL. That's what DT just said. Every single week is a test. Wasn't that funny? I'm going to go to the actual steepest street in America. I'm going to go to Bradford Street and check that out. And on that note, we can end. We just went through a lot. Bosa, Purdy, all that. I got to go eat dinner. Remember, I'm still on East Coast time. So everybody, thank you. Thanks for keeping it classy. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye now.